I'm Wally Podrazik. I haven't decided what generation I'm in yet, but we're about to start the generational discussion. Oh, hey, quiet as a mouse. I'm going to hand this over to the original first generation Fest person, Al Sussman, because he was there before the beginning and has seen it through all those years. I have to pop in and out, otherwise I would be kibitzing from the very beginning, but I just want to say nothing gives me greater joy, frankly, than to see Beatles world invigorated, renewed, reinterpreted by the people on this panel, because that's just what's happening. It's not, oh, well, it's never been better than 1963, and we don't want anything to change from there. Let's take what was in 1963 and bring it into the 21st century, and these folks have done that so well. Susan Ryan is at the other end. I'm going to hand this mic over to Al Sussman, and I will be in and out, but go to it, team.
All right. Thank you.
Wally.
Thank you. What's up, Al? Thank you, Rob Leonard. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to start at...
Somebody close the door. It's too loud with the stuff out there. The door's got to close. I'm sorry. We're kind of wary because we got locked out of this room earlier, so the moderators couldn't get in here. It was fun.
That was on purpose.
Thanks.
No problem. No problem. I'm going to start this by doing something that I did this morning on the first generation panel. I want you each to introduce yourself and tell me what your introduction to the Beatles was. How did you first become aware of the Beatles? Now, obviously, it's a little different for the folks of my generation because we were there when it began. But how did the Beatles first come into your lives?
Yes, I'm going
Skylar.
first.
I'm good, North.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skylar. I'm a social media... Thank you. Didn't know my name could get so much applause, but I am a social media content creator. I've been a Beatles fan for the past 10 years now. I first really got into them when I watched A Hard Day's Night in my music history class, my sophomore year of high school. I had heard the Beatles, throughout my whole life. My parents would play them around the house, but seeing that movie is what really got me into the Beatles, and now here I am today.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Larkin. I'm one of the DJs on SiriusXM. You guys are so kind. Thank you. I am on the younger side of the millennial side here, along with Mr. Andy Nichols. The only answer, Mr. Sussman, is that birth. Birth is when I discovered the Beatles. I love telling this story, and Mom, I'm sorry if I'm going to embarrass you. But literally, if it were not for the Beatles, I would not be born. My parents met at a club in 1975 on my father's 20th birthday. He sees my mother needs some liquid courage, goes up to her and asks her out on a date. She says no. My father goes, why? She goes, I don't know you, I'm not going out with you. So he continues to go, well, if you knew me, would you go out with me? And she's like, no. So my dad, defeated, starts to walk away, turns around and goes, I bet you don't like the Beatles. My mom goes, of course I do, they're my favorite band. Therefore, I'm born.
And we're all very glad you are, and were.
Oh, is it my turn?
Ethan?
Yes?
Yes. All right, I think my mic stand's busted, so...
Oh, yeah, the mic stand's been giving us trouble. No, it won't work like that. Tip it down.
Or, there you go.
Oh.
Sometimes magic happens.
Teach me how to do that.
Thank you, very select group of people, for laughing. My name's Ethan Alexanian. I host a podcast called Fans on the Run, where basically kind of what we're doing right now. People saying how they got into the Beatles. That's my show. So the intro to this panel, I'm feeling a little bit competitive. This is my domain.
Right.
But I got into the Beatles through my Uncle Paul and a copy of the Blue Album on CD that was beside the couch in my living room when I was 8. And I saw it and I'm like, who are these weird looking guys? And I put the CD in the CD player and listening to Sgt. Pepper, and then suddenly the track number goes from 3 to 4. It's like, this just sounds like the one song, and I was hooked from there.
Cool. Good job, partner. My name's Andy Nichols, and I am a co-host of the solo Paul McCartney podcast, Two Legs, that I do with my partner in crime, Tom Hunyadi, which I'm not sure if he's in here. He was. Okay. My introduction to the Beatles was a little different. As Caitlin said, we're second generation. I'm 43. So I kind of came into the Beatles in the video age with John Lennon's solo career. So that's kind of how I first discovered really the Beatles. I was really John first, and really just the Shaved Fish compilation that was my father's. Kind of just dove into that first, and then connected the dots that the guy on that cover is the same guy on the cover on all the other albums. So it was John first, where I kind of then dialed it back. So that's really where I started. Probably in the, I don't know, 86 or 87, and haven't stopped since.
Oh, you mere children. So I'm Susan Ryan. I'm one of the moderators in this room. I am also the author of the Beatles' Fab Four Cities, which I co-authored with David Bedford and Richard Porter from Liverpool and London, respectively. David Bedford is here. We're going to be having a panel in here tomorrow about the book. And I'm also the tour guide and owner of Fab 4 NYC Walking Tours. I do Beatles Walking Tours of New York City. And if you're interested in information about that later, I'll tell you about it if you want to come talk to me. And I got into the Beatles, well, okay, it's sort of twofold. I'm not quite a first-generation fan. I'm a first-generation fan by technicality. I was in the room for the Ed Sullivan Show. I was 2. I don't remember it at all. So my mom used to tell me that I was in the room and I had to take her word for it. And I do remember watching the cartoon shows, but I wasn't a big fan. I mean, the music was there, so you kind of, it was kind of the soundtrack of your life, so you kind of knew it was there. If your parents listened to the radio and you were a little bit too young, you heard the radio. My first Beatles memory is hearing We Can Work It Out on WABC when I was about 4. And that was the single, and WABC played it like every 25 minutes, and so you got to know. But I became a big fan in 1975, so I call myself a first and a half generation fan. And that was when a slightly older girl at summer camp asked me if I liked the Beatles, and my answer was, I guess they're okay. And she said, well, if you think you like the Beatles, then I can recommend a whole bunch of stuff for you to listen to and read and do. And well, I became a lunatic. It was all right. And the real coalescence of all of that was when I saw Hard Day's Night at my local public library in the fall of 1975 and saw them up on the screen, not just singing, but they were walking and talking and moving and laughing, and that was the end. So that's how I became Beatles fan.
Now I'm going to steal another standard question that Ethan does on Fans on the Run, and that is,
You'll be hearing from my lawyers.
cease and desist. And that is, what did the Beatles mean to you? Skylar.
Oh, you're making me start out this one.
Yep.
Okay.
I need to think.
Well, no, I need to think. You have more time. Okay. The Beatles, I mean, just long story short, I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for the Beatles. I would not be getting into the career that I'm trying to get into if it weren't for the Beatles, because I got into them originally because I was starting to get invested in music history and hearing about how different bands and artists impacted the world, and I fell in love with them that way. I thought it was going to be a year-long obsession, and 1 decade later, that is not the case. So they've just been with me for the past 10 years, and they've, kind of guided me down this path. They've given me the confidence that I need. They've given me that courage to say, hey, you can do anything if you set your mind to it. Just hearing their lyrics along the way. There's always been a certain Beatles song for every aspect of my life, and I feel like that's kept me going. They're the one thing that's been consistent with everything that I've been through in life. So they're like my best friends, they're like my family now, and I think that says it perfectly.
I still haven't thought of my answer. No, the Beatles mean family to me.
Yep.
Oh, God, I'm gonna make me cry. They also mean comfort. When you need them, they're there.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to go because I'm gonna cry.
And on a second note, when Caitlin says that the Beatles are family, I would also say that Beatles Fest is family, because
Fest family.
I've never felt more welcome in my entire life than I do here.
I've been coming to this convention since I was 6 years old. This is family. This is life. You know, that it's being with your people, and you get to do that just by listening to their music, even if we don't get together all the time.
And I'm just going to say Caitlin is going to be part of the Growing Up at the Fest panel tomorrow morning at 11:30. It's going to be in this room also, and we're going to have a whole bunch of people who started coming to the fest as young children and teenagers who are still here. I'm one of them too.
So thank you for that sort of segue. Ethan,
The Beatles, they're all right. No, well,
Right, they're not the nice, right?
no. Well, not everyone can be the nice. The Beatles, it's hard to quantify what the Beatles mean to me, which now, after doing 80-something episodes where I ask that question every single show, now I realize how hard that is for someone to answer. Yeah, it's impossible to quantify. Without the Beatles, I wouldn't be here. Without the Beatles, I wouldn't like all the music that I like. That's not even just the Beatles, like the nice.
Like the nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the Beatles.
Well said, and I think we're all on the same page with this answer. I really do. They mean everything to us. Love, compassion, caring, your best friend when you need one. They're always there, the constant, you know. People might disappoint you, family, work, life, whatever, but they're always there.
Yeah.
Beatles or solo, you know, or solo. And there's so much music to, outside of just the 212 songs, you know, they're always there, the constant you can always lean on, no matter what your mood is. And I think Skylar said there's a song for every mood that would suit what you're going through at the time. And it's a comfort to know that they're always there. And the music, which is why it's why we're here, because it's just good music. That's what the Beatles mean to me, now and then.
Ooh, nice. I see what you did there. You know, I have to say that what Caitlin said about the Beatles meaning family and the Beatles meaning comfort, absolutely. I developed the emotional connection very quickly.
wanted to know more about them as people. When I found out more about them as people, I loved what I found out. And what they mean to me, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to articulate it, but there's such an emotional connection, and so much of my emotional well-being is wrapped up in these four guys, and I'm going to cry too. You know, it's very, you know, it is joy. It's joy.
It just comes right down to joy.
And the
Thinking about them, listening to the music, looking at them, everything.
and they're there, you know, like if I'm really, there's a song for everything. You know, if you're having a bad day, you go listen to certain songs. If you're having a great day, you go listen to certain songs. And they're always there. And also, like Caitlin said, and other people on the panel have said, the fest, I've been coming to this thing since 1977, you know, and I still come, and I'm up here now, but I still come, and it's such, this is my family, this is where I want to be. Twice a year, I go to Chicago too. This is where I want to be, with my people, with my tribe, you know, and that's what they mean to me. They mean community. And it's funny because during the pandemic, I started, instead of just talking about Beatles fans and that kind, I started actually using more the phrase Beatles community. Because when we were all only able to sit behind a computer and we couldn't go see each other, we could still see each other on Zoom, we could still go to a convention on Zoom, we could talk to each other, and so the community became so important. And I think aside from all the things that make us this community, the community itself is important. That's what they mean to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the the emotional end of it, just this morning, when a bunch of us to the restaurant to have like the sort of the traditional fest breakfast in the restaurant, think about a minute after as we were just getting seated, and on the speakers comes Now and Then.
Yeah.
And I was getting verklempt. No question about it. But on the other hand, what Caitlin was saying about Beatles music being a comfort, even back then in the back in the Stone Age in the 60s, when I was a teenager, when the tough times, all I would have to do would be to put on a Beatles album, and it was a comfort, no question about it. Now, on the other hand, Skylar, you're
You're scaring her. Al, you're scaring her.
no, nothing to be scared about. But you've sort of came to popularity through TikTok,
Yes.
right? Now, did you get any blowback from people of your own age?
Oh, yeah.
Saying,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, mainly, it always starts with the fact that John Lennon is my favorite Beatle, and then you get the certain fans that think they know it all about him just from reading one headline on Google, and they try to tell you differently and try to say, what a terrible person he is, and this, and that. I could have a whole panel myself just talking about that, but we're not going to get into
And I
that.
could help you with it.
Yeah, get all the Lennon fans on board, but, that's usually the main thing. Or then I do have some people try to tell me, oh, your content is cringy, or what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. But, I see that and I'm like, okay, if you don't like my content, if you don't like what I'm putting out, don't watch it. Don't interact with it, because it's not for you. I'm creating content for the people that want to see what I do, that like to see what I do, that tell me, oh, I'm so happy to see another Beatles fan my age. You're giving me, the encouragement to speak out about my own love for the Beatles, because I don't have that community, and now you're providing me with that. So that's why I do it. I don't care about anyone that's, coming at me and saying, oh, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Because that doesn't matter to me. But it does happen. It's unavoidable, no matter what you do. But I believe Susan's the one who said it before, that that you've made it when you finally start having people sending you hate mail.
When you
or
start
sending
getting hate mail.
messages.
And I
That's
hate-
how you've made it.
I hate to say, well, I hate to say it,
We
but
all know.
all three of our younger people over there have told me and other people at various times that they've received hate mail, and my response to that is, you've made it then.
Yep. That's positive. That's how you turn it around.
Yeah.
There you go.
yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you mean, because back in the early years of Beatlefan, I think people were not used at that time to kind of objective analysis of Beatles music, even the solo music. And, we kind of were objective, if an album was not that great, we said so. And I can remember particularly, I did a report card on the first 10 years of the solo careers, and I gave George fairly low marks because, there were peaks and valleys in that first decade. And what mail we got.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the following year, I did a review of his Somewhere in England album, the review was probably even worse.
Oy.
and there were people writing in saying that I had a vendetta going against George Harrison. So it's
There's always going to be people that aren't happy
Yeah.
with what you do. You
Yeah.
can't avoid it.
exactly. And like Andy, in doing a podcast, you probably get much that same kind of blowback, right?
Yeah, a lot more recently now too. Seems to be but like you said, you've made it.
Why is that?
Yeah.
I don't know why. But we just roll it in stride.
And it's funny because the feelings about each individual Beatle, whether in the group or as solo, change too. So for a while of course shortly after he died, John was the saint on the mountain and Paul was nothing, and now it's kind of reversed. But then again, you know, and George is now finally getting his due, which I think he should have gotten a long time ago, you know, but you're always going to get blowback from somebody. You're always going to get somebody who tells you, I mean, I could tell you a story about giving a tour to two young women, and one was a fan and one was not. They were friends, and the one who was the fan was enjoying the tour, and the other one spent the entire 2.5 hours of the tour berating me in not so subtle terms about how could I talk positively about John Lennon, the serial abuser. You know, and I finally turned to her and I said, if you don't like the guy, I'll finish the tour with your friend and you can meet us afterwards, okay? You don't have to stay here. And she wouldn't stop either. And so that blowback is happening too now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, the world is a different place than when the Beatles came out. The world is a different place than when John Lennon died. The world is a different place, a lot of things. I'm not saying that any of that stuff that is wrong now was not wrong then, but it was a very different world. So I didn't need to be told, why am I speaking positively about John Lennon because he was a so-and-so? And I'm going, you don't have to hear this then. Why are you even here? So, you know, the world changes and the feelings about the Beatles change generationally too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
you know.
I know as a podcaster, we do just mainly all about Paul, and people assume that we're just going to throw praise on every single thing. We don't do that.
No.
We don't do that, but a lot of people just think, oh, you're just going to love everything that he does, and we don't. But we'll take, we'll just, take an album and, oh, we don't really think that track is that good. We've done it before, but people just assume, oh, they're just fanboys. We're not.
In the Beatles community, if all we did was talk about them, like praising them and giving them A+,
There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, you'd have nothing to talk about.
Nothing to talk about
There's
then.
no healthy debate.
But automatically assuming that is just what people do.
Nobody would ever take you seriously.
Right. So.
Because if you really were fanboys, you wouldn't be critical.
Right.
You know, if you can't look objectively at something, even if you love it, and say this, you might love it warts and all, but you know there's warts. You know what I mean?
Pipes of peace, right, Joe? Like. Don't go there. Don't go there, bro.
I don't like Red Bull Speedway either.
Now listen.
Well, okay, that's worse.
Okay.
Can I toss in a question, and I want to ignore the over 40 crowd here.
Thanks.
We're out.
Just for this question, what is a good topic these days that is currently, if you say, apart from saying I was just at the fest and did such and such, but put that aside, it's February of 2024. What kind of stuff do you think is worthwhile talking about? Not to be like, I want to praise everything they've done, I want to trash everything. No, what do you want to talk about as a contemporary fan at this time in Beatles appreciation?
Well, if we're talking this month, I mean, definitely speaking on the 60th anniversary of them coming to America and just reliving all those stories from when they were first here and kind of looking back at them thinking, wow, it was that long ago. And, trying to, talk with the older fans who were there when it was the time of the Beatles coming in, get their perspective. And then even the younger fans just thinking, wow, it's been 60 years, how can we look at them now? How can we look at their music now? And then even I'm starting to think, oh, what were their albums in 1964? Because they were my age at that point. And it's scary to think, I'm like, you guys were on the Ed Sullivan stage at my age, and then I'm here at a fan convention for them.
Yeah.
Like, there's just those two different worlds. It's just funny to think about, but, in terms of anniversaries, that's the best thing to talk about. But then, from personal experience, just whenever I try to post content and try to see what my viewers like, it's always when I'm telling random stories about the Beatles or random fun facts, because even if they're the most obvious to us, they're not the most obvious to so many people out there. So they'll see these videos where I'll say, oh, here's a few fun facts about John Lennon that you might not know, or hey, the Beatles did this on this day in history, and here's some fun things about that. And people go, wow, I never knew this, like, thank you for telling me about it. And then that always gets conversations going in the comments, because then people start elaborating on that story, or they start asking questions about another topic related to it. And I think it's always a good time with that.
And I have one more follow-up, and then please
Yes.
jump in, which is one of the ways you communicate, at least when I've tuned in, is costuming, role-playing, whatever. So when you're talking about sharing fun facts, you're not just printing out, here's a fun fact. You are presenting facts through your eyes as interpreted either through editing of the presentation or costuming or whatever. So what goes into that?
I mean, I do always write up little scripts for when I'm recording my videos because I want to be sure I know exactly what I'm saying, and then I like to add a little bit of Skylar flair, Skylar humor into it sometimes because I got to make it original to myself, even though it's the same Beatles story that a lot of people might have heard. You got to have your own original take on it, so I like to do that with writing scripts or with editing, or sometimes, if it applies, maybe a little bit of dress up. I do like to dress up as John. The accent isn't fully there, but I try. If people find it funny, that's all that matters. So that's when it's a fun time. Thank you.
Yeah, as far as being topical now, of course, the anniversary to piggyback off of Skylar, but also the fact that we literally have a brand new Beatles single that just came out a few months ago.
Really?
Yes.
Really. Like, can you believe that?
I know.
Like, we're celebrating 60 years of the Beatles coming to America, and just a few months ago we got a new single. And the fact that
And they won the Grammy.
And they
That's
won
right.
the Grammy for Best Music
Yeah,
Video.
yeah.
People got, that's a hot topic that I could add to that.
Oh,
People
that's
got
right.
mad about that. Anyway, I'll let everyone else
Keep going, but I want to come back to
Yes.
that. Yeah, go.
I lost my train of thought.
They
New
just
Beatles
won
song.
a video.
Right.
Grammy.
Oh, yeah.
Grammy.
So to be a radio DJ and to go, I'm about to play the latest single by the Beatles, is a sentence I never thought I'd be able to say.
I think that's amazing.
I'd just like to address the point in the question about costuming. I'm not
You into that?
I'm not really sure what you mean by that. This is just my normal discussion panel ruffled shirt.
And Brian would have been proud of it. So.
And we're over 40, so we're out.
Yeah, no.
All right. You can weigh in now, but only after we go back. You wanted to
We can talk now, then?
Yes, the best. Okay, so for those who don't know, the Beatles just won the Grammy for Best Music Video for "I'm Only Sleeping." Yes. And I saw they were up against artists. I know they were up against Troye Sivan, Kendrick Lamar, Billie Eilish, and then there was one other artist whose name is escaping me. Hey, listen, I'm a Billie Eilish fan.
Yeah, don't, no.
Billie Eilish, the bomb.
Anyway, but so many of people who aren't hardcore Beatles fans were getting so mad about that, and I posted a video about it saying, oh my gosh, the Beatles won a Grammy in 2024, let's reflect on that for a second because that's insane to think about. And people were commenting saying, aren't they all dead?
I get a lot of that.
The Beatles are irrelevant compared to the other artists, and I
That
came
was
back.
the comment that made me
Yep.
lose my
Only-
mind.
I said-
Only 3 of them are dead.
What's funny is that what's funny, Skylar, is that if you asked any of the other artists, they would probably tell you they like the Beatles.
Exactly. Like the Beatles were a huge influence on Billie Eilish.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
That. And that was my point going back, was telling anyone who was responding with that kind of comment, I was saying, hey, listen, a lot of your favorite artists that are, in the top hits today would probably tell you that the Beatles influenced them, and they wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the Beatles, because the Beatles have been that band and that inspiration for so many people, and it's incredible to think about that as a whole. So, but then there's some people that just won't listen to that, and that's when it gets frustrating.
And these
But-
are also people who didn't see the music video and saw the gorgeousness of Homegirl's oil paintings, 1,300 of them. And how you have to give a Grammy to somebody who has carpal tunnel. She earned it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now you can speak.
Okay. I did want to say one thing before I forget to do it. So this panel was originally just a Gen Z panel with a bunch of Gen Z fans, but a couple of years ago, Ethan called me and he said, I wonder if instead of doing just Gen Zers, because that's starting to get a little bit old, that we have a multi-generation fan panel. And I think that this panel, we've done it now for 2 years now, and I think it's been this fourth fest will be in Chicago. It's been a great idea, so I want to thank you for the idea, Ethan, because it's good to get multi-generational people up here. I think it's interesting about the Beatles' influence on people, and I these days, my future daughter-in-law is a huge Swiftie. She loves Taylor Swift. And she played some of her music for us, and I liked it. I thought it was great. And I wrote to her the other day, and I said, now, if you knew somebody who was not a Taylor Swift fan at all and knew nothing about her, what would you suggest you listen to? And she did exactly what I do when people say, if you know, somebody doesn't know the Beatles, this is what I listen to. She gave me a list, and I'm starting to listen. By the way, it's very good. She's the real deal. Okay, that's my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but she's absolutely the real deal. Paul McCartney thinks she's the real deal, but that's totally aside from anything. You know, and I think that I think they were an influence on her, but that's a whole other thing. I think it's important to recognize that you know, this fandom, people who think the Beatles are irrelevant now don't understand the music, the history of music. They don't understand the importance of the way things changed. I have heard this phrase 500 times this weekend, even in the hallways. When the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan, the world went from black and white to Technicolor. And they've literally heard that exact phrase. And I think that people, young and old, need to realize that this is so influential that to be able to say, I'm playing a new Beatles song, or the Beatles won the best music video in 2024, and to realize that the people who didn't win were probably fans of or influenced by them, is a very important music history thing. Because I think if you don't understand the history of popular music, then you don't understand popular music at all.
Did you want your shot in?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. I like the description of the video, by the way, because it is a gorgeous expression, a colorful expression. It's a nonstop flow, and it illustrates the point of it's not the Beatles fossilized, it's here they are continuing to manifest in different ways. I asked you, I'm going to ask the same question in a different way, which is, all right, looking forward, you've got Susan doing her list of Taylor Swift songs, you've got you doing your list of Beatles songs. So if you, this were a revival meeting, how would you go proselytize as 2024 continues to unfold? In other words, do you point people to video? Do you point people to music? Do you point people to TikTok? What do you...
I'm always going to point people to the music because, you know, that's what did it for me. I mean, A Hard Day's Night was the kickoff, but then ultimately, in the end, it was the music because just hearing their voices and hearing certain tunes and registering the lyrics and realizing, wow, this is artwork, that's what I'm always going to point people towards. I'm going to pick out the songs that mean the most to me, the lyrics that changed my life, and I'm going to say, you know, this helped me during this time, this helped me during that time. It might serve the same for you, it might not, but yikes.
I didn't do it.
But
that's that mic that's very sensitive.
yeah, that's the perfect way to get started. That's what I'm always going to direct people towards. And then if you like what you're hearing, then we take it from there, and there's nowhere but up. And then if you're not a fan, that's okay too, as long as you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had to recommend people listening to the Beatles for a long time because everybody who listens to me is already listening to the Beatles. But the only thing I can really equate it to was, you know, growing up as a kid. So I was born in 1989, so being a 90s kid, I got made fun of relentlessly for listening to old people music. And that started changing around high school. And when people kind of started giving in a little bit. And so my recommendation always was, I would give people my Abbey Road CD. I said, this is what you have to do. You're going to listen to this all the way through, and you're not going to skip a single damn song. You are also going to listen to this with headphones on. Get back to me tomorrow. And 80% of the time it worked.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, how I got some of my friends in high school in the early 2000s into the Beatles.
Are we open for questions?
Let's do it.
Questions. Come on. Don't be shy. You are the spokespeople of your respective generations. Not asking you to ID which one. Go ahead.
All right, well, Generation X, so I think this could be more directed towards Andy.
Okay.
Just some favorite videos, memories, stuff like that. You know, growing up on MTV.
From that era? Seeing a lot of the Lennon ones, obviously, because it was the 80s. So I remember seeing, like, Starting Over and Woman, of course, and then Paul, Take It Away, my co-host's favorite song of all time. all that stuff, No More Lonely Nights, obviously, there's Mr. Broadstreet right there. So, obviously from the 80s, I'm a little bit older than Caitlin, but obviously those memories come to the forefront for, right away.
Resonate with you folks, or shall we? Very creepy. Yes, over there.
Hi. To me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I got two things. As a first and a half generation fan, like Sue, I'm very sensitive about being that the Beatles are mine. Okay, as somebody said earlier in the panel this morning, Paul is mine or George is mine. You can't have him. The Beatles are mine, and I'm very sensitive about how people, even generations under me, younger than me, might react to the Beatles, and sometimes they haven't always been as positive about it, and so I've had to have the defense kind of back. Well, this is why you should listen to this. This is why I want to hold your hand. It's important. This is the kind of thing, and so it's exciting and it's fun and it's heartwarming as hell to be able to look at social media and see Ethan or talk to Skylar on social media and see these posts of love for the Beatles, and it's absolutely amazing.
Can I take that one as the first and a half generation fan? So when I was growing up in the 70s, it was the height of uncool, the absolute height of uncool. Okay, I graduated high school in 1979, and I became a fan in 75. And you would not believe the amount of ribbing that I done. Ribbing was the gentle word. Some of it wasn't so nice. That I took for being a Beatles fan. You like that old stupid music? Why don't you like this, that, and the other thing? By the way, I do like a lot of 70s music now, but took a while, I mean, the stuff that was on the radio in 1972 when I got my first FM radio, I kind of loved that, but that's a whole other thing. But, I think that to pass this on to the next, and this first generation fans will say the same thing, not first and a half, but first, like Al and Wally, to pass this on to the next generation, if we want this to continue, we have to allow subsequent generations to learn about it, love it, enjoy it, and we have to be willing to share it. And it can still be ours. So it's definitely mine the way it's yours, Ed. I mean, it belongs to me, but it doesn't only belong to me. And I love the idea that it belongs to every other person on this panel who are much younger than I am. Except for Wally and Al, of course, and I don't think they're bad about sharing it with me. No, I think they're very good about sharing it with me, so there you go.
Question?
They're mine. That's, I really like that line.
Yeah.
They're mine because they're mine in different ways.
Yes.
But if they're just yours,
Right, yeah.
For those people that sometimes say that, then it will die.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah.
We don't want it to die.
Therefore, let's
Right.
share.
Exactly.
You have to light one torch from another one. You just have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we got
Tom,
Way in the back.
way in the
yeah.
back.
way in the back. He has an in.
The mid to late 80s, I'd say would rival your 70s because with Madonna, Janet, hair metal. I mean, I was probably the coolest.
We can compare uncool notes later. Okay.
KOTB.
Hanson and the Spice Girls. Come on.
Spice Girls. Yeah, I love that documentary.
Okay, Spice World was the modern day A Hard Day's Night, and nobody else
No,
can
it
tell
was.
me
It
any
was.
different. I will die on that hill.
I will die on that hill with you.
In the back there.
Great movie.
Terrible high five.
Wally in the back.
Yeah, all the way in the back.
In the back.
For the younger gen up there, I guess, as a future filmmaker, I always am trying to figure out how do we get the younger generation to appreciate. I watched the numbers on, from Backbeats across the universe yesterday. How do we get it to take it up a notch? What do you think young people want to see to make them go, oh my gosh, this is great, just like the video just now?
It's hard to predict, and also it has to do a lot with upbringing.
Yeah.
Should I have been watching Backbeat in 1994 when I was 4? No. But I did. And here I am. But I guess passing it down is up to the person who is indeed passing it down.
And it's up to the artist, whoever, like, whatever your vision is. Like, if you want to make a movie about, one period or another, then it's about doing what you feel is right too, like the art that you want to put out there, and then it will resonate with whatever audience it does. Like the right audience will find your work no matter what you decide to do.
I would say let go, be willing to share, and also be willing to admit that the way you look at it is not the way this generation or this other circle is looking at it. Meet them where they are. Don't try to say, you got to think the way I think. No, you don't. Just take the road, take the trip with me and see where it takes you.
Yeah, but they gotta want to take the trip though, Wally. Sometimes they don't want to. They don't want to do anything sometimes.
Well, you know what? Then accept that message.
They're not Beatle people if they don't want to take the trip.
In the front over there, Sharon.
I just want to kind of speak to this a little bit too, because as Susan knows, I've been coming, next year will be my 30th anniversary of Fest, and I'm also 43.
Yeah.
Next year will be my 40th anniversary. And I used to come with my mom, who, when I was 14 and only speaking to her to fight to her, handed me a copy of Revolver and basically said, talk to me tomorrow. and I remember it was, I Want to Tell You, and it was the dissonant, it was a dissonant piano, and I was like, what am I hearing? And it was magical. And we started going to Fest after that, and it literally saved my relationship with my mother, who's now gone 14 years. But this summer, I brought my kids to Chicago.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And to see the joy on their faces when they were on the dance floor. I remember my husband couldn't come, but I sent him a video of my kids dancing, and he goes, they have never been more your children than they are right now.
When you bring your kids to Fest,
Your mother's grandchildren than they are right now. And it's just that there's the joy and the belonging that I experienced coming from all these years that I am now is synonymous with the Beatles, that I'm sharing with my children.
when you bring your kids to Fest after being somebody who's gone to Fest for that long, when I brought my son when he was 5, he had a wonderful time. He met a lot of people. He had a good time. He danced. When he was 13, he came in second in the Sound Alike contest. And by the way, he was singing Working Class Hero, swear words and all.
Yeah.
Yes, I do too. But so the fact is that, but the fact that my kid, all right, when you're 13, you're filled with angst anyway. So, you know, that song probably resonated with him in some way that may or may not have anything to do with me. I hope not. But yeah, when you bring your own, when you've been coming to Fest forever and you've been a Beatles fan forever and you pass it on to somebody else and you bring your kids to Fest and they have as much fun as you did when you were that age, oh my God, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. Yeah, I relate.
Yes, I'm a first generation. And when I graduated from high school in '75, no one was Beatling.
No one was.
Nobody was Beatling.
The Beatles weren't Beatling.
I was, like the lone wolf,
Yeah.
like the Beatles, And I believe in the multi-generational because this is my niece next to me, and she's been coming to the fest with me for many years now.
Awesome.
And the first concert she ever went to was with me, to Ringo Starr and his all-star band. I think you were maybe 4, 5 at the time, which I said, I gotta get her in early.
Yep.
Or the Yellow Submarine DVD. We had it all going on. I think it's just important to pass the richness,
Oh, absolutely.
the gift of the Beatles,
Eh, The other thing that, building on that, just one thing is I took my son to see Paul McCartney when he was 15. We tried, but Paul never came to town when my kid was in town. My kid was always at camp. But the one year that he didn't, I took him to see Paul. And I told him, he was a fan and he wanted to go, but I told him, this is important to me because you are going to be probably the last generation that's going to see him. By the time you have children, he's certainly not going to be touring, and he may not, and she should live and be with us anymore. And I said, you need to be able to tell your yet-to-be-born grandchildren that you saw one of the Beatles, because it will be just as important when you have grandchildren as it is right this minute.
for one of my birthdays, I opened up the envelope, and she had bought tickets for Chloe and I to go to see McCartney. Was it McCartney in Brooklyn? Was it? Yeah.
That was the one, I took my son in Brooklyn, yeah.
It was like Paint It Back Tour on for taking her to
Yeah.
Ringo back in the day.
Yeah.
When we were at the Ringo show, who came walking through but Andrew Loog Oldham.
Oh, wow.
And I said to Chloe, and I went up to him and I told him I knew who he was and this and that. And I said, now Chloe, this man is the very beginning days of the Rolling Stones. She was probably like, yeah, whatever, because she was like only 4. But now it's like, okay, so I was trying to
Yes.
bring all that British invasion stuff into her life somewhere along the line because of the richness of the music and the gift of it all.
I should also point out that my Swiftie, future daughter-in-law, also is a Beatles fan, so there you go.
We- we-
This question's mostly for Skylar, but anyone can answer if you wanted to. Regarding the people who misunderstand John Lennon, what piece of media, like a movie, a book, or interview, would you recommend to them to really understand who he was?
I always recommend May Pang's book, Loving John, and now I can recommend her movie, The Lost Weekend, A Love Story, because she really, round of applause for May.
So good.
She just she really tells it like it is with John, because she got to spend almost 2 years with him by his side. She started off working for him and then ended up, falling in love with him, and they had a whole relationship. And just, her book is so detailed. She really saw every aspect of who he was, the good and the bad, and just at the end of the day, the way she paints it is that he was just a normal guy. He had his flaws, he had his issues, but we all do. And she also shows the good side to him and how ways that he was starting to improve himself and his life and his friendships and family relationships over the years. So I recommend that. If anyone ever tries to tell you that John is not the guy you think he is, then that's what I point them towards, because that's the best piece of media that I've been able to find.
Thank you.
How much more time do we have, guys?
You've got about another 10 minutes.
Okay, good. No, because I don't know I just want to point out that there's something in the program that says Sarah Schmidt will be doing an AV presentation in here. She won't be because there's no AV in this room, so I just wanted to say that,
But
yeah.
we will be, let me get my
We will be
commercial.
practicing for, yeah.
We'll be practicing for the Troika production of Here Comes the Sun, the morning show hosted by Deco and Victoria and yours truly, with guest appearances by such folks as, well, Susan, Tom Frangione, etc. You're welcome to come by. It'll be fun. You can participate, maybe even win a silly gift.
That's just, I wanted to make sure people who wanted to see Sarah didn't, but should come by for the Troika, so absolutely.
That's an easy.
Yeah, we have a couple more, yes, there and then.
And over there too.
When I caught Ringo's surprise appearance at the Bottom Line, I think it was in 2003. After I left the place, I was walking past the NYU campus, and I saw a sign advertising a Beatle-themed graduation party.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Rob?
First of all, Caitlin, I agree with you about saying playing now and then. I played it for 3 months every hour on my show, every 3-hour show.
You're doing the Lord's work, Rob.
And one of the things I said, what you said, was I never thought I'd say new music from the Beatles.
It's such a trip, isn't it?
And a lot of people, some people didn't want to hear it because I was overplaying it. But from what I've heard, it wasn't played many other places.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that includes the Beatles channel. I'm not sure of that, but some couple.
No, I think we played a plenty.
It should have been every hour like it was WABC.
The first day it was released, we played it every hour on the hour.
This guy had a
Yeah,
question.
there's,
My question
yeah.
to Susan,
Yes, okay.
when you did the tour of New York City, what are you amazed that's still around after all these years?
Good luck. The Ed Sullivan Theater is still being used as a TV studio, and it was a radio studio before. So the Ed Sullivan Theater has been around since the 20s as a CBS studio in some form. That's pretty cool, but that's now a landmark, so it's kind of not going to go anyplace. I'm sorry that some places are gone. That's more of the question. There are some places that used to include on my tour that are gone now, like Cafe La Fortuna, where John and Yoko used to go and eat and hang out. And I used to go there a lot with my son. We used to have lunch there all the time, and that's gone, and I'm sad about that. It's an eyebrow waxing salon now. It's like and they have no idea, by the way, what was ever in there and what it meant to Beatles people. So what am I amazed is still there is more like, what am I sorry is still gone, you know what I mean? There's the flip side to that, because what's there is great and probably isn't going to go anyplace. They're not going to knock down the Dakota, they're not going to knock down the Ed Sullivan Theater, they're not going to knock down Radio City Music Hall, so there's things, but the stuff that's gone, like Manny's Music Shop, like Cafe La Fortuna, things like that, the stuff that's no longer there is the stuff that, I'm sorry? And Shea Stadium, exactly. Which I don't do that on the tour because it's a million miles away. But I do tell a story about that, because
Paul was at the first concert at Shea with the Beatles. He was at the last concert at Shea when he showed up with Billy Joel, and he was the first concert at the New City Field. So he kind of bookended and, ooh, this thing is ridiculous. It doesn't like you. It doesn't like me. It keeps biting me. He bookended Shea, and he started the new one. So, you know, yeah, I know it was. Of course it was, but it's so perfectly poetic, even though it was on purpose, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I think it's more about being regretful of what's gone than about what I'm surprised is still there.
I have one more comment. You talk about continuing the Beatles. One of the things I think that people at Apple have to realize, and they have sort of done it, is the fact that you have to allow music to be used in current movies or TV shows.
Yeah.
And I think of the TV show Mad Men a few years ago when they used Tomorrow Never Knows.
Yep.
And besides showing that it's 1966, it also shows that Don Draper, who everyone thinks is this cool guy, he has no idea what the hell is going on with that song after his younger wife, much younger wife, says, listen to the last song on side 2. And they got it right because it was American Revolver. So one thing that they have to realize is that in movies or TV shows or whatever, they have to allow it to be heard, not a cover band or not something, you know, use the real thing, you know. It doesn't hurt to play a Beatles song in a commercial because a lot of people see.
Well, I think
In other parts of the world, that counts as a charting thing.
what might happen if they keep keeping it as expensive and prohibitive for small budget productions to do that is that while people will still listen to the music digitally or on records or on CDs or however people listen to music, it's gonna still fade faster because it's never in a film, it's never on a screen, it's never in any other medium, and I wonder how smart that is, you know?
I was thinking of the movie I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Which is full of, yeah.
Songs are in that. If it was done today, they'd cover some band.
And it would be just as bad as the DVD release of WKRP in Cincinnati, so there you go, yeah.
Well, can I just add that you know, if Apple doesn't loosen up regarding the usage of the songs, then, you know, God forbid they may end up like the Dave Clark 5, where Dave Clark kept a hold of it so tight that he didn't let it out, and everyone kind of forgot about the Dave Clark 5.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Because he was smart enough to have ownership, but not savvy enough to
Yes.
use the ownership.
Exactly.
There's 2 questions over there, 3 questions over there, in the back in the black shirt first. Or, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know, but go ahead. Sorry.
Just wanted to touch on the using songs in movies comment. I don't know if anyone's seen this yet. It's kind of new movie, Argyle.
Yeah.
I didn't really particularly love the movie, but I was shocked and kind of pleasantly surprised about the prominent use of Now and Then in the movie.
Heard about
And
that.
I didn't
the
know
movie
that.
kind of plays a kind of important part in the story. I don't know if anyone has seen it because it's kind of new, but I was
That
just
was
curious.
Giles that kind of pushed that. Paul was even trying to push George Clooney into using Now and Then in one of his things.
I was just very intrigued and surprised.
Well, I know as of recently, along that, with the new Indiana Jones film,
Using Magical Mystery.
yeah, using Magical Mystery Tour. Sorry, spoiler alert if no one's ever seen it. That, yeah, it was amazing and blew me away to hear that song, even though, yeah, I mean, I guess it was kind of historically accurate. We'll talk about that another time. But to hear that on a movie theater, like surround sound system was amazing. So I agree. They, you know, keep it up.
Some people who aren't gonna know that that's Beatles,
Yeah.
Oh, God, don't say that.
The, the,
but maybe they'll learn.
the gentleman in the white sweatshirt over there, yeah.
Hi, this is just a question for anyone who wants to answer. Let's say a young fan or a young person or a person who's never heard the Beatles before, they want to know more about the Beatles and they come to you. You have to tell them something about the Beatles, but they only have a minute, let's say. So,
What's our elevator pitch?
In one sentence, what would you tell them about the Beatles?
One very long sentence, if necessary.
Sure.
The greatest band of all time.
Definitely.
If I only have one sentence, that's a sentence.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
Everything that you like that your favorite singer did probably got it from the Beatles.
All you need is love.
The best friends you never knew you could have.
And
Yes, I just saw the Fab Four last night, so I was wondering our opinions from different generations on Beatles tribute bands, not just the cover bands that did music.
Is Is there a chance you have an opinion on this, Kate?
The Fab Four are the best Beatle band on the planet. I will die on that hill as well, and many hills I will die on. It's another thing to keep the love alive. And one of the first experiences I ever had, Mom, I wish I remembered how old I was, 4 or 5, you took me to see Strawberry Fields. And I was like, oh my God, there are the Beatles. I'm at a Beatles concert. And it's the way to keep it going. And, you know, I hope that there are more, you know, folks around our age that start Beatle bands to keep it going for, you know, our generation's, you know, children someday down the line. So
It's-
as long as your Paul is a lefty, keep it going.
And it's an immersive experience too. I mean, as long as you got the wigs right, and as long as you got the outfits, then that's all that matters. Like, you're playing the music that people love, and that's what we all go there to see.
For my money, it's the Fab Four, F-A-U-X. I've seen them 30 times. They are for me, bar none,
And
the best.
they're not a wigs and suits band. So, you know, my personal opinion about tribute bands, and interestingly, I noticed this, tribute bands in New York are not as big a thing as they are in the Midwest. Chicago area full of tribute bands. I mean, I've literally seen tribute bands at like car shows in Lombard, Illinois, you know, so go figure. And good ones too. But I'm less concerned with whether they look like the Beatles, but whether they sound good. So, yeah, exactly.
Bingo.
Fab Four, absolutely. Although the Fab Four, okay, years ago put out 2 Christmas CDs where they took Beatles melodies and sang and we own them both. And when we are trimming our Christmas tree, we play it and we laugh because it's so clever. It's just so clever, and that is our Christmas tree trimming music. Okay, so But we're not looking at them when we're listening to that. We're hearing them. So it's all about the sound.
I love those Christmas records they did so much. I petitioned Ron, the guy who's, you know, their John. I was like, you need to put these out on vinyl.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Well, they did. He did.
Yeah, I have it on
I missed
CD.
out on
but
that.
yeah, but and it's parody, so it's not like they don't have to pay for the copyright.
Right.
They might
But
pay for
it's
something.
also done so respectfully. You know, like, I don't like using the word parody necessarily because, you know, you think of Weird Al when you think of parodies,
Yeah, but even Weird Al, that's not
I even love
negative.
Weird Al. No, not at all. I'm not saying
it's
that's
wonderful.
negative at
He's
all, but
respectful, too.
yeah.
You know. Yeah.
I think
Did
they
that.
used one on an episode of House too.
Nice.
So, but that's
And that goes to multiple people making the point of, that's where you make an impression. Here I am cruising through House or Scrubs or whatever. Oh, that was interesting. And maybe you know what it's from, maybe you don't know what it's from, but it probably stood out. And it might drive you to say, let me see if I can hear that again.
Okay.
I think there should be a multi-generational round of applause.
Thank you, everybody. We had fun. This was fun.
I don't want to leave my chair. This is my chair now.
audition.
Oh, yes, yes. And
We'll do these panels again because people seem to like them. Thank you for the idea, Ethan.
Thanks.
yeah.
Hey, all right, easy with the caftan.
What was the next thing in this room supposed to be, Wally? Was it supposed to be, it's Talk More Talk?
Yeah, Talk More Talk.
and 2 legs. So we're gonna, Andy's gonna stay, Tom's gonna come up, and Joe is gonna come up, and we're gonna,
And Ken Michaels.
and Ken Michaels is gonna come up, and we're gonna, is Ken here?